In this movie, we're starting off with static HTML and CSS files, and we're going to add on the capabilities that we'll need later on when we introduce the Ajax that we need in order to have the auto-filling style sheets. If you're following along with the exercise files, we're looking at ajax/chapter05/02/script.html. This is the HTML file, and we're only going to need to add a couple of things starting here in the input field on line 9. The first thing we need to add is a new attribute, autocomplete equals off. This needs to be set off because some browsers will fill fields in for their users, and we want to make sure that that doesn't happen with this field because that wouldn't interact well with our Ajax component. So we've set it off. Then we need to add a break here because we don't want our next line to put this div on the same line as our field. Our div is called pop-ups. And then we end our div. And that's all we need to do to add to our HTML file. There's a little bit more that we're going to want to add to our CSS file, and let's do that now. Here we are in our CSS file. The first thing we want to do is set up a rule for pop-ups, which was the div we just created in our HTML file. And all we need to do for pop-ups is set a position absolute so that we can fiddle with that div later. Next, we need to say search field.error. This lets us change the color of the search field whenever we find an error. And then all we do is say background color. We want it to be a nice strong yellow. So there's FC0. The primary thing that the Ajax file is going to be doing later is creating a whole bunch of divs. Each of those divs will be of a class type suggestions. Those are the suggested values for the state field. So let's set some rules for that. Div.suggestions. It's going to have a background color, and want that to be white, just in case our background is something else. Going to put some padding around it. 2 pixels top and bottom. 6 pixels left and right. And a border. Let's make it 1 pixel solid black. And the only other thing we want to do is, if you remember, when we put the mouse over any of the fields, the background color changed. So that's going to need a div.suggestions hover. And in that case, we say background color, and let's make it a nice blue. And that's all we're going to need to do to our CSS file. In our next movie, we're going to start looking at the XML file that we're going to use to drive our Ajax program.